Alright, hi guys, we're back with the World War II in the Pacific battles video. So we're about to jump into this. We got to really quickly go through this because we only have 15 minutes to get through the main battles. This should move quicker than the one in Europe because we're really going to leave one major event out because I want to cover it in a different video. Plus, your next DBQ has a lot to do with it, so I don't want to spoil that for you. So with the war in the Pacific, we only have one major enemy, that is the Empire of Japan, and this is really the reason why we get into World War II anyway. Just redoing, going back over the causes, the reason why we're getting involved in the war in the Pacific. Japan's empire is expanding, and it's been expanding at the point of a sword. They've gone and invaded Korea and Manchuria, taking over that for food, and then they start spreading down the rest of China. And when they get into China, they are not nice. By any means of the word, they're not nice. Nanking is just wanton destruction. There's going to be two Japanese officers that are going to compete to see which one of them can kill the most people by sword. And the Japanese newspaper is going to run a tally. This guy's got 105 today. This guy's got 106. It's kind of like in the Lord of the Rings with Gimli and ooh, what's his name? Where they're competing, the elf guy Legolas. Yeah, there we go. Where they're competing to see how many they can kill. Same thing, sword, and mostly civilians are being killed. We're trying to protect down here French Indochina, Malaysia, Borneo, and the Philippines because they need to get to that oil. We embargo the oil, and they are going to strike at us on December 7, 1941 with a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. We've already gone over this with the causes of Pearl Harbor being our major naval base. They want to knock out our Pacific fleet, a knockout blow to destroy as much of our Pacific fleet as possible. Our battleships are lined up perfectly, pretty ready for a bombing run right here, right beside each other. But luckily for us, our aircraft carriers are not. So the Japanese Navy sends their 6 aircraft carriers on this strike, and they start dropping bombs. This is actually a photo from a Japanese bomber, actually probably more of a torpedo plane, just considering how low it is, dropping bombs on our battleships. That's Battleship Row right there. A lot of our battleships take major damage. The Arizona probably being is the worst hit. Its magazine explodes, killing over 1,000 of its sailors. And the next day, FDR addresses Congress asking for a declaration of war. Really doesn't have to because the war's already on. We already have a lot of our Pacific Fleet knocked out. But he does get the declaration of war, and we are in. We're now in World War II, both guns blazing. Aftermath: 2,400 Americans killed, 18 ships, 292 destroyed or disabled. Yamamoto knows that his goose is cooked. They didn't get the aircraft carriers, so he says, I can run wild for 6 months, but after that, we're going to lose. So the Axis powers were mainly dealing with Japan. In the Pacific theater, it's basically going to be us, Britain, and up there is KMT China, the Democratic Chinese, or actually both Democrat and Communists are going to be fighting together against the Japanese. Then they're going to go back to fighting against themselves. How we view the Japanese is different than the Germans. The Germans, we always had this hope that there were good Germans that were against Hitler. It's not so much in Japan. Japan, their emperor is seen as divine, so that's not really going to lend itself to being people against their emperor. So we're going to see them as more fanatical. Because of this, we're really concerned on our west coast. We have large amounts of Japanese Americans, and we want to make sure that they're not spies or saboteurs. So we're going to start round them up, put them into camps to keep them away from the coast where there could be an invasion. Prisoner of war camps, in German camps, It's only about 2 to 4% death rate, but in Japanese prisoner of war camps it's much higher, 20%, probably being the lowball estimate. Now there are climatic reasons, tropical versus a temperate climate. However, it's much more physical abuse, malnutrition, and also just outright executions. Bataan Death March, when the Japanese finally take over the rest of the Philippines, there are a lot of American soldiers that are going to be captured at Bataan. They're going to be sent to prisoner of war camps. Now on this march, if you stumble, if you trip over a rock, if you're just tired and fall down, if your knee hits the ground, you're getting a Japanese bayonet in the gut. They are not taking you any further, they're killing you. Right? So propaganda is going to back that up. Right? Stay on the job until every murdering Jap's wiped out. Right? So island hopping is going to be the big strategy that the United States is going to employ. The Japanese are spreading down. They've got Borneo and Indonesia, Malaysia. Looks like they've got their target set on Australia and New Zealand. We are going to stop them at a battle here called the Battle of Coral Sea. We'll talk about Guadalcanal a little bit later. And then Midway is going to be very, very important. Probably the most important battle in the war for the United States at the time. Because if not, that leaves Pearl Harbor and Hawaii open. Who knows what happens after that. Right? But Midway is a huge, and we get very, very lucky at Midway. But our strategy for taking the war to Japan is we've got a huge problem. We've got over 3,000 islands that Japan has some sort of control over. We can't waste time trying to hit every single one. So we're going to develop island hopping, hopping from one to the next to the next. Not hitting every island, sometimes skipping a couple islands to knock out the supply routes. And once we do that, the other ones are just going to die on the vine. They're not going to have enough supplies to continue fighting. Alright, so the farthest advanced, the Japanese, they do get into American territory here in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, and they are taking over the Philippines. Battle of the Coral Sea turns them back, Guadalcanal, and definitely Midway. Our leaders, the general, the leader of the Army is going to be Douglas MacArthur, and the leader of the Navy, because this is really going to be a naval war in the Pacific, is a guy named Nimitz. Right, 4 important battles: Midway, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. We're really going to focus on 1, 3, and 4. And there's other ones: Peleliu, Guam, Leyte Gulf, the Marianas Turkey Shoot. All those are important, but these are the ones that we've really got to cover. Midway, probably the best one for us. Right? Japan is about to launch an attack and try to capture Midway Island. If they do that, Hawaii is going to be open to invasion if they're able to set up a beachhead on Midway Atoll. Right, so we've got to turn them back. Just so happens our aircraft carriers are searching for the Japanese fleet, and we find them first. So we're able to bomb them first. We're going to be able to knock out 4 of their 6 aircraft carriers. Japan can't replace their ships like the United States can. If we lose 4 aircraft carriers, it knocks us back. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. That's 66% of their aircraft carriers that they will have for the entirety of the war. That is a knockout blow. They cannot expand any further than that. So these are going to be the main sites of Midway. It's an all-air battle. Our planes dropping bombs on their carriers. Whoa, I just moved that picture. And their planes dropping bombs on our carriers. And flak trying to shoot them out of the sky. Guadalcanal is really our first major land battle in the Pacific. It is a brutal battle, back and forth, back and forth. We're finally going to gain control of the Guadalcanal. There's one guy who's going to get the Medal of Honor because he takes a big machine gun and lays it on his arm and shoots until the entire cartridge is let out, to hold back the Japanese until he basically has burns on his arm from the barrel of the machine gun getting so hot that it burns through. Iwo Jima is the iconic battle. The iconic battle. I mean, this is the one where we get the picture, and which we'll see in a minute, of the Marines raising the flag on top of a mountain. You've seen it. We'll see it in a second again. But it is a 3-month battle. We're going to try to bomb Iwo Jima into the dust before we send our troops in there. It's a old volcano. It's not spewing out lava. It's a dead volcano. But what the Japanese have done, this is important to them. This is the first island that we will be fighting on that has always been Japan. This is their home territory. They're not going to give up without a huge fight. So they've dug in, they've carved tunnels into that mountain, they've put gun emplacements, they've hid everything, but it's also kind of a suicide mission. If you're sent to Iwo Jima, it's because somebody didn't like you, and they wanted you there because they knew you weren't getting out. So there's also a movie called Letters from Iwo Jima that takes a look at Iwo Jima from the Japanese side. One thing I will mention, there is no island called Iwo Jima before Iwo Jima. It's called Iwo, but our map makers got it wrong. We're going to have our amphibious assault start on February 17th, or 19th, sorry. Mount Suribachi is that volcano. We finally get that on February 23rd. They raise a flag basically to tell the ships, stop firing. We've got the mountain. There's going to be a lot of suicides by the Japanese. They're usually going to hold 2 grenades in reserve. One crash on their helmet, throw at the Americans. The second would crash on their helmet, hold it up to their chest, and blow themselves up. They weren't giving up Iwo Jima without major losses. And this is a picture of our soldiers getting off the beach. Very reminiscent of D-Day in Europe, which hasn't happened yet. No, it has happened yet. I'm getting my years mixed up. D-Day has happened yet. Now, this is very reminiscent of it. That amphibious invasion. That's Mount Suribachi in the background. That is the signal point. Flamethrowers are used because we've got those tunnels. We've got to get them out of there. And this is the first flag on Mount Suribachi. 3 of these guys are going to be killed by the time the battle is over. So once we got Mount Suribachi, it's not over yet. This is the famous one. Right? This is a posed one after. We have to go back and put another flag up because the first one was too small. All right, Iwo Jima aftermath. Both sides, 46,000 dead, 23,000 wounded. The Japanese toll, I think there's only 1,000 of their soldiers left at the end, and most of those are some sort of wounded. The big thing is here, we have 3 airstrips within 700 miles of Tokyo. We can deliver a massive amount of bombs. Okinawa is the largest sea, air, land battle of all history. Last major battle of the war. 110,000 Imperial troops killed, and 150,000 civilians are going to die. And the big part of that is that they've heard all these bad things about American troops, and they're just going to jump off cliffs. Right? When they see American troops coming, they commit suicide. 36 U.S. battleships sunk, and a lot of it is the Kaitan and the Kamikaze. That's the battleship Yamato. It is the largest battleship in history. The leadership of the Japanese start unraveling. Tojo steps down, and the next one really isn't all that powerful. And these are the Kaitan is basically a suicide sub. Bomb at the top. You're back here. You know you're going to blow yourself up. But it's a self-sacrifice for Japan. And then Kamikaze, which is more popular. More people know about the planes intentionally running into the ships and blowing themselves up. But the biggest thing that ends the war for us is the atomic bombing and the incendiary bombings. We have these large, huge bombers called super fortresses, and they just bomb Japan into oblivion. They burn Tokyo almost completely down within one night. A lot of Japanese houses are made of paper, so they burn easily. 13 million people homeless, and this is a list of the towns that are bombed and the percentage of it burned. 66 cities devastated, more than the atomic bombings. And then what we're going to do is we're going to finish up with the atomic bombings in a separate video. Right?